Alright guys, my name's Nick Modfries, and welcome to episode 3 of the Aussie Geek Party Chat podcast. For our third episode, we have got 4 people in on the pod today. We've got Darren, Mick, Wes, and myself. We've all been introduced at various stages over the last 3 weeks anyway, so I won't go around the trappings, but I will welcome everybody to the podcast. Welcome, guys.
Greetings.
Howdy.
G'day.
I am terribly unprepared.
It's the Aussie Geek way.
It's a bit loose, that's for sure.
Overpromise and underdeliver. We've got a lot to talk about this week, so we're probably just going to jump straight into it, actually. Lots of talking points. We're going to have a discussion around a certain Marvel Netflix TV show, maybe what we want to see next year from gaming. But before we get to those more involved discussions, we're just going to launch into the talking points. So, Just Cause 3 has just come out, guys. Who has had a chance to play it, and what do you think?
I might take the lead on this one because I've actually been reviewing for the site, and hopefully by the time this podcast is published, it will be up for people to read. It's been a interesting game. It doesn't care, is what it comes down to. It knows that it's dumb, and it just doesn't care. Like the first mission, you're flying into a war zone, surfing on top of a plane with a rocket launcher blowing stuff up, and it pretty much sets the tone for the entire game.
I'm no expert, but that doesn't sound like something that actually happens in a war zone.
Listen, it's not technically based on reality, so. But the game's a lot of fun. It does have some issues. There's been a fair bit of talk about it. Lots of things like frame rate issues. That's probably the biggest one, which is really disappointing when you're looking at a game that's big selling point is lots and lots of explosions. And then your frame rate drops, and it sometimes drops fairly significantly. It's a bit rubbish, and it's not one platform underperforming. It's universal, even on PCs. So
really, it's worrying. Is there anything in the works in order to patch that out?
There's a day one patch, but it really hasn't resolved anything. So I'm not sure if Avalanche are going to do something about it, but from what I've been reading online, it seems to be related to memory leakage as opposed to like poor coding. So potentially, it can be patched.
Right. That's unfortunate.
And I think we're only talking 30 frames per second, and from what I gather, it's running better, slightly better on the PS4 than the Xbox One. I think one of the issues that they've said with the Xbox One is it just doesn't seem to keep up that consistency. It's chopping and changing around a bit. Is that your experience?
Yeah, it's not just frame rates that are affected, which is why the general chatter is around a memory leak. What you find is that the actual physics engine kind of just loses itself and just random stuff happens. Like you'll tether something and then it'll go flying off into the wild blue yonder for no reason. Which is a bit rubbish at the same time.
Sorry, I was just watching something go flying off into the wild blue yonder. Darren, have you had a chance to play, or is this part of your underpreparedness for the episode?
I've played a little bit of it, not obviously as much as Michael, but I've been enjoying it. Like Mick said, the game doesn't take itself seriously at all. Probably even more so than previous games in the series. I love the first 2. I've finished both of them, and I'm quite enjoying it. It's just fun. I can look past, well, maybe not so much the frame rate dips and things like that. If they could fix that, that'd be really good. But the stupid glitches and things like that, and the complete outlandishness of the game, I think are fine when you're having so much fun.
Yeah, right. And Wes, have you actually played it, or was it just?
No, I haven't had a chance to check it out. I've seen lots of footage though, and it does look fun. But you look for what's this game all about? It just seems to be about blowing shit up, really. Let's face it.
Yeah, no, that's it. I think I'm pretty confident that's the plot.
Yeah. Probably says that on the back of the box.
Yep, you blow shit up, and then you blow more shit up.
Yeah, explosions are tied together with thin threads of story.
The elevator pitch for that must have been pretty fantastic. You can imagine that. So picture it, just shit blowing up. And it's like, all right, here's $1 million, go make a game.
Yeah.
Spectacular. Mick did manage to make a quite an amusing video, which is currently up on the YouTube channel, displaying some of his wingsuit action. So I'd recommend everyone go and check out the Aussie Geek YouTube channel. Plug to see that rather amusing video. Well done. Moving on to our next talking point. Apparently, allegedly, reportedly, Warner Brothers games are looking to expand, I should say, the DC universe. What have we got on that, guys? Has anyone actually heard anything? Like, is this just a rumor? I mean, it seems like a bit of a no-brainer to me, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's all rumours at the moment, but WB Montreal are hiring for 2 different AAA DC-related games. So we've got no idea at the moment what they are, but they've got 2 separate AAA DC games coming. So one would imagine one of them's a Batman Arkham sequel, and the other one, speculate away.
Superman 64 remake.
Yeah, look, I hope it's not some sort of cheesy Batman versus Superman movie tie-in. I've had enough of those ones, but they absolutely have the license to leverage. So I hope they do it properly on the back of the successful Batman games. Who knows?
Is it time? Is the world ready for an Aquaman game?
Yes.
Please.
If the world was ready back in 1994 for Echo the Dolphin, the world is ready in 2015 for an Aquaman game.
Yeah.
The world has been ready for a long time.
I'd be far more on board with that than I would be another Superman game.
I would be far more on board with that than another Batman game, I reckon.
Yeah, I'd personally actually like them to, I think that Rocksteady did a tremendous job with the Arkham games, but I'd really like them to look at some of the other heroes. We've got, Green Lantern, you've got the Flash, you've got these really interesting characters that could potentially make a really great video game world. Let's do something from there instead of the same old stuff.
Wonder Woman?
Yeah, Wonder Woman.
Why
Cool.
not?
Yeah. Even like just some of the secondary tier characters, I think you could have something really fascinating. The JSA, like anyone who's watched the old Justice League cartoons, the Bruce Timm Justice League cartoons, where they had, that massive cast of rotating characters, Martian Manhunter, there's so much to pick from, and all they've done is 3 Batman games. It feels like, and a shitload of Lego titles, which, to be honest, pretty good.
Yeah. I see you playing them quite regularly, Nick, so no trashing the Lego games.
No, I love them. No, I'm not trashing them at all. My wife and I absolutely love playing them together. She kills me constantly, and I get enraged, then we have a fight. It's great. Love it.
Sounds very therapeutic.
Yeah.
Yeah, very.
I'd like for neither of them to be Batman, but if that was the case, I'd almost put money on one of them being Green Arrow. I think that he would be the easiest one to transition into that game style of Batman without using Batman, and with the popularity of Arrow, the TV series, I could see Green Arrow being a candidate.
Okay, so having said that, who do you reckon would be a good character other than Arrow? Darren just took that.
Well, I'd probably lean on Flash. I think the mechanic in that game could lend itself to, I think, a game pretty easily. So and maybe it's even not just one character. I mean, DC outside of Batman probably don't have, even Superman games, the strength to have one character do the game on their own. Maybe that's just me, but I think maybe a conglomeration of a couple might be worthwhile.
So like a Justice League game.
Kind of like a Justice League game, yeah. I mean, looking at the Lego games, which we were talking about, the best games on Lego are things like Marvel Ultimate Superhero, which is just that big mashup of everybody.
They could do even a fighter that isn't a Mortal Kombat ripoff.
Yeah,
that would be amazing if they did a Marvel versus Capcom style 2D fighter. I would lose my absolute mind.
Yeah, but that's not going to be something that WB Montreal are doing, I wouldn't think. And if WB was doing another fighting game, they'd be using NetherRealm, and it would be a Mortal Kombat ripoff.
That being said, the DC Mortal Kombat game was actually pretty good. I thought it had a pretty decent, for a fighting game, it had a pretty decent plot. I actually quite enjoyed it.
Injustice.
Yeah.
I have one problem with the DC. Well, with a lot of their sort of tie-ins, be it film, TV, not so much the comics, but they are taking a very dark path at the moment in regards to their storytelling and how they portray their heroes. It's like everything is Nolan verse. You know, it's like it's miserable and it's everyone's a bit weepy and you know it's just a bit it's soul destroying. And then you look at something like a lot of the Marvel stuff and they manage to have that sort of light-hearted edge to it that I just don't think DC really gets at the moment. And so when I want to see a fighter, for example, or anything that comes out, I want to see it funny. I would prefer to see it funny, or at least just a little bit more brighter, because it's. We'll come to this later. You know, the Batman vs Superman teaser that we saw. You know, depression, horrible. You know, kind of.
Yeah.
It's just,
I'm still seeing Ben Affleck as pretty comedic as Batman. That's pretty funny to me.
I don't know. Anyway,
I wasn't convinced. The mask comes off. I wasn't convinced. I'm sorry.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Yeah,
we'll get to it. So I think it's a bit of a no-brainer that they're looking to expand their DC Universe games. They've got the licenses. They can do what they want, really. I'm surprised that they haven't done more until now. So it's a bit of a no-brainer. I think we can all agree.
Yeah,
indeed,
definitely.
Bit more news coming out regarding Sony. Apparently, they've managed to unlock more of the PS4's processing power for developers. Is that right?
Yeah, reports are that they've unlocked the 7th core. Why it was locked or what they've done to unlock it, I've got no idea, but hey, more power is good for everybody, right?
Unlocking the 7th core sounds just a smidge like something out of Naruto, where they unlock the chakra gates, and if they unlock one more core, they're going to release all their ultimate power on everyone.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like Dante's Inferno. Oh no! You know, the big scythe. I'm on the 7th core. My dead wife is nearby, or something like that. Sounds bloody awful.
And there's vagina walls everywhere. In the walls. Have you played Dante's Inferno?
I'm actually surprised they felt they needed to release the extra power at this point in time. I mean, they've got such a strong lead on the Xbox One. I don't see it catching up anytime soon. You know, maybe hold it for a more substantial time. I don't quite get the timing of the announcement. Not that it's been officially announced. I think it's just sort of leaked out, as is the way with Sony. So.
Yeah, with you, Wes. I don't think it's going to do a whole lot, and quite frankly, I want you to prove it to me before you start banging on about how much of a difference it makes.
Yeah.
Because, to be honest, the thing looks gorgeous anyway, so...
That's right. I was just going to say that Sony have had a pretty strong mandate for wanting all their games to be running at 1080p 60 FPS, and it hasn't been hitting that. Like, they've been pushing devs hard for it, and a lot of the games aren't coming out at 1080p. They are coming out at, you know, higher res than the Xbox One a lot of the time, but they're not coming out at that 1080p. And I think that's what they'll be aiming for.
That or the frame rates aren't as solid generally. If they do push push it up to 1080p, it ends up suffering with frame rate issues. Not often, but some games have been a bit more framey on PS4 than on Xbox One, even though the Xbox One's running at a lower resolution.
Is it true, or is it just fanboyism, that there is no 1080p 60 frames per second AAA exclusive Sony PlayStation 4 game? That's
Killzone.
That's the thing going around the world.
Killzone launched.
Wasn't there an issue with Killzone or something?
It's multiplayer,
fully
60 FPS, but the single player campaign was 1080p 60 FPS.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
At that point, you're really splitting hairs, and it as you say, it's fanboyism. I think that they've had a few that have reached that mark, though.
Yeah. Both consoles have had games that do hit 1080p 60 frames. It's just a matter of
That's exactly right.
They've all kind of been, well, for Xbox, they've generally been the first-party games like your Forzas and I think Halo was, yeah. So they both can do it. They just neither of them do it consistently.
I am one of those people who doesn't really care about frame rate, to be honest. As long as the game looks pretty.
You care about them when they're missing.
Yes,
I'm the
probably.
opposite. I'd rather a game run smooth than look, well, not look pretty, but be cutting edge. I'd rather it run smooth.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just the type of titles that I play, but I've never really run into too many issues with, a lot of dropped frame rates and not smoothness and not.
Play Just Cause.
Anyway, look, if they've unlocked it, great, and if it means that developers can make them games look even better or make them run higher frames per second, then wonderful. But I'm going to remain a little skeptical until somebody can show me the difference. Moving on, probably should have done this after the Warner Brothers thing, but whatever, YOLO. The new Batman vs Superman teaser dropped a couple of days ago. I will go around in thoughts. I will mention a name first, so we don't all talk over one another. Mick, I want to hear from you first.
So thoughts on it? It's a pretty interesting setup. We're seeing an actual conflict. I don't know how it's going to fall within the story arc, and I've got a really nasty suspicion that it's going to be a really crappy dream sequence. But I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. I'm seeing a head nod in the bottom corner of my screen. You think that's the same thing, Nick?
Yes. Over to Wes.
All right. So as a trailer, it did its job. It was definitely a teaser, no question about that. But like I said earlier, when Superman rips the mask off Batman and it's Ben Affleck, I just thought, wrong, just wrong, because I've still got this image of Batman as Christian Bale, and I just don't think Ben Affleck's living up to that expectation for me. So I'm intrigued. I wanted to see more. Nice little teaser, but what the hell?
Yeah.
So
on
Darren.
Sorry, go Darren.
Yeah, I also think that the sequence is bullshit. As in, I think it's just a dream, and they're completely selling that. Well, it's only a teaser; it's not a full trailer, but selling it the wrong way, making people think that that's actually going to be the conflict. If that is not in a dream sequence, then there's no way that Superman is not under the influence of Lex or something along those lines, because it's just not Superman. Yeah.
All right. Nice.
I'm okay with Ben Affleck though, by the way. I'll just put that out there.
Yeah, I got to admit, I think Ben Affleck is more Batman for me than Christian Bale.
okay.
And I did quite enjoy the Bale flicks. Well, but full disclosure, even as quite a large Batman fan and a big comic book fan, I haven't actually watched the third one yet because I can't quite bring myself to do it for reasons. I don't dislike them necessarily, but I just don't feel like. Yeah, I don't know. There was something missing in them. I feel like it was just, again, it was that relentless depression watching them. And I know Batman's a pretty dark character, but it was, I don't know, just didn't quite scale the heights for me. But I'm a little bit worried about the movie. I feel like it's going to be one of those. It's going to be a very comic booky plot, and I think that a lot of comic flicks have sort of been trying to transcend that. Whereas the impression I get for the Batman one is that it's actually reveling in it. It's sort of it's very proud of its comic bookness, perhaps a little bit too proud. We'll see. Who knows at this stage? But I have read some rumors online that it was all just a dream sequence, and it's all Bruce being paranoid about how it could all go wrong with like this omnipotent bloody alien overlord ruling over everybody, and so that's why he is. Where the conflict comes from, basically. But who knows? Like,
adding credence to that, there was actually a toy that was shown off at the toy fair over in the US of Batman in that outfit that he was in the trailer, and it was called Nightmare Batman. So it kind of makes it sound very much like it is a nightmare rather than reality. But we'll see.
Could be interesting. Like, regardless, I'm intrigued to see how it shakes out.
The full trailer, I think, drops later tonight. So while we've missed it before this podcast, it won't be long before we see it. You've probably already seen it, viewers, before you watch this podcast.
Yeah, true. So I'm sure next week we'll be able to give our impressions.
I still think millions of people are going to go see this movie. It's going to be successful, even if it's a dud.
I'm going to go see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will too. I might be angry the entire time, but I'll still see it.
Sitting in your seat, shaking with rage. I think, given the fact that setting up the entire Justice League, it's going to have Wonder Woman. It's going to have is Aquaman in this one?
I think Cyborg's he has a small part. Yeah, Cyborg's in it. It's basically Justice League without Flash.
Justice League 0.5.
Yeah.
So I think that selling point alone will get people in to watch it, even if they look at as Ben Affleck as Daredevil and can't bring themselves to watch it for that reason.
Oh, I'd forgotten he was in that for a second. Thanks.
Yeah. No worries.
I think it's been long enough that there's not going to be an easy line to draw there, unless you go into it not wanting to see it because of Daredevil. I don't see you watching that and seeing Daredevil in Ben Affleck in that movie.
No.
You are underestimating the nerd rage, and you shouldn't. Moving on, because as I said, we've got quite a lot to talk about. Rainbow Six Siege has arrived for some of us. I haven't got a copy yet, sadly, but that's okay. These things happen. Who's had a chance to play, and what did you guys think of it?
I've played some of the beta. I haven't picked up the game since launch. Was it yesterday? I enjoy the game as far as the moment-to-moment gameplay. I just don't know how long it's going to last. These multiplayer-only shooters, there's been a lot of them over the last 12, 18 months since Titanfall, I guess. And they always seem to run out of legs. I already felt after playing basically over the weekend and a few times previously at different events that I'm already starting to get a little bit bored of it. That said, I also haven't been playing it with friends, which changes everything, obviously. So I'm keen to get into some games with a group of mates and see how we go then. But it's probably the game of the holiday season that I've been the least keen for.
Okay. What about you?
So I'm in that boat as well. So it's I think based on the beta, essentially kind of like Star Wars Battlefront, where I experienced the beta first and walked away feeling not that excited or enticed to go and purchase the game. So I don't know if that's something that these companies need to go back and have a look at, but it just felt like a pretty lonely place unless you were absolutely playing with friends and coordinating your activities, because that's just not happening in my experience. But having said that, though, reports are that the game is really fun, so particularly for the first few hours. But longevity-wise, I'm not 100% sure either.
Yeah. The big difference between Siege and Battlefront that you just brought up is that Battlefront has a hell of a lot more content or game modes and things like that in the final release than it did in the beta, whereas Siege, each of the different game types are very much the same thing. You're breaking in to get a bomb in a room, or you're breaking in to get a hostage in a room, or you're breaking in to just sit in a room. It is the same thing no matter what game mode you're playing. You're doing the same thing on the same maps. You just have to get into a room and do a thing. So for almost the entire game, you're doing the same thing. And from every game that I played, and I mean every single match of this game that I've played, I've never seen anybody actually complete the objective. It always ends before that happens with one of the teams being wiped out. So you have to get in to get the hostage. You never make it. You either wipe out the team that's trying to defend the hostage, or they wipe you out trying to get in. I've not seen anybody actually evacuate a hostage in a match that I've played, or defuse a bomb, or any of the objectives of the game.
And how does it feel about the game visually? Like I'm not necessarily seeing like a true next gen visual kind of game either.
After coming off Battlefront, it looks crap, basically.
Yeah.
It's Battlefront's stunning, and you're coming straight out of that and into Siege. Siege doesn't look great, but it is fun, apart from obviously the issues that I've got with it.
Yeah. Interesting. Mick, did you got into the beta, didn't you?
Yeah, I got onto the beta on the PC. I found it powerfully unforgiving. in much the same way I would probably struggle if I jumped into a game of Counter-Strike. The simple fact that you're dead and you're out for the round, and it's so easy to be killed. I found myself watching from the sidelines more often than not. But not necessarily an indictment on the game, more on my skill as a player. But I think for a new player, it's going to be a tough game to get into. As you guys have covered, I mean, it's not a very particularly exciting game to look at. I think the lack of game modes is going to be massively working against it, and I just didn't gel with me.
Well, personally, I'm hugely excited for it. I didn't get into the beta. I like that kind of thing. I like quite hard shooters. I enjoy stuff like Armor on the PC. That sort of more realistic take on shooters. Counter-terrorism operations aren't usually referred to as breaking into a room and sitting. So that's a little bit concerning.
That's all right. You won't get into the room. One of the teams will be wiped out before you get in there.
True.
Do you get the impression that it could be an extra mode in the next Call of Duty or the next, typical shooter, as opposed to a standalone game?
Yeah, it's a good call. I think it doesn't.
Yeah.
I think it's because it doesn't have much meat behind it. It's just that one game mode. Feels like it could be, as you say, a game mode in COD.
Yeah.
The thing that I think might rescue it is something that I was discussing with Darren offline the other day, well, online, but in a Skype call, Skype meeting that we were having, where we were discussing like the DLC plans and stuff like that, and free maps coming out and stuff like that. With a game like this, I think you're going to have to support it quite heavily post-launch. It's not going to be able to just sort of live or die on what it ships with, and I think it has something like 10 different maps, which is a reasonable amount when you're playing against attackers and defenders. That's up to 20 separate experiences, I guess. But yeah, I feel like, again, I haven't played it, but from initial impressions from what other people are saying, that it's going to be the kind of game where it needs that ongoing support to keep people interested. I played Rainbow Six Vegas an insane amount when that first came out, and Vegas too as well. And that, I don't think, had 10 maps worth of content, worth of multiplayer, and months and months and months of gameplay. So, fingers crossed, I guess. Yubi deserves a win. Feels like that.
I think if it's got a strong esport following, it can also do quite well. That, I think, will be its biggest key to success, is getting a good esport league going, so that you've got that regular engagement with fans of the game.
Actually, that's a really good point. Esports is something that could really do something pretty special for this game.
Yeah, it's perfect for that sort of stuff. The game is really perfect for that. The competitive side of it will be really good. The issue with, like Mick was saying before, if somebody who's not really into those hardcore shooters jumps in to play it, against a team of guys who play it all the time together, you've got no chance at all of ever winning a match. So it will be very, very one-sided when you get to a point of people learn all the maps, learn all the tactics on each of those maps. It'll be impossible for people to get into that game late.
But how's that any different to any MOBA that's out at the moment? You rely on the matchmaking to weed that out a little bit, so that you're not going up against like level 40 bloody dudes who've spent hundreds of hours playing Dota 2.
That's one of my issues with Destiny at the moment, is I feel uncompetitive in that game.
Oh, this is much worse than Destiny.
I just reinstalled Destiny, so that's exactly what I wanted to hear. Yeah, but you're right. It is a problem, and that's where you hope that matchmaking comes to the fore, I think, and just sort of saves that immovable object and sort of ultimate force kind of crashing together. Moving on again. Sorry, guys. We're trying to fly through these. Platinum have apparently... Okay, let me start that again. A Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game has been outed by the Australian Ratings Board, which, sounds like something that would happen. Platinum are apparently in the process of working on this, or at least applying to have it rated. Darren, I think you mentioned this. What have you got?
Yep. Well, there's nothing apart from the fact that it was dropped by the ratings board. they've been busy, Platinum. I'm not sure whether this is going to be a good thing or not. I don't see it being like their core team working on this. If it's just been rated, it means it's coming out fairly soon. Games don't tend to be rated like a year out or even 6 months out from their release, so one would expect this is a Q1 game that we haven't even heard of at all. So I'd say it's probably more along the lines of a Legend of Korra Platinum game as opposed to a Bayonetta 2 Platinum game. So we'll see what it turns out to be.
Yeah, right, okay.
I'm going to call it early and say it's going to be rubbish. It's going to be a cheap little arcade title.
Well, it's Activision, so it won't be cheap. It'll be an arcade title.
Ouch!
I'm going to go with it's going to be rubbish. I will agree there. It'll probably be some horrible movie or cartoon tie-in. If it was a side-scrolling beat-em-up, then we would be talking.
It may be. We don't know at all.
Sorry, Wes, what was that, mate?
Oh, probably just a Nickelodeon tie-in or something like that. I can't remember ever experiencing a Turtles game which was phenomenal or
Not even
unforgettable.
the arcade fighter?
Yeah.
The side-scrolling one?
It's been such a long time since that experience that, you know, it's suppressed deep down in my memory somewhere.
It's down there with like trigonometry and that kind of thing from high school.
That's it.
You said that like a bad thing though, but I would be far happier if this is a Nickelodeon based game than it is a Bayverse TMNT game. So please be Nickelodeon based, and I'm happy. That, or if they went the same way they did with the latest Transformers game, make it like the 1980s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I'm a little bit more interested.
Yeah.
All right, moving on yet again. There's been a bit of news about recently from the Land of the Rising Sun regarding Nintendo reportedly. Here, I'm going to quotation mark the entire time during this. Nintendo reportedly targeting 20 million NX units shipped for 2016. Now, before I hand it over to you guys to have a chat regarding it, I'm going to say that is the least interesting piece of news I have ever heard in my entire life. and a reported target for units shipped for a console that we know little to nothing about, other than the fact that it's being made by Nintendo and it has 2 letters in its name. And it may ship next year. Over to you.
Can you put it back next to that year?
So I was just going to let you all talk over one another. Wes, do you have any thoughts?
I'll keep it on. Look, I've got more question marks than answers for this console. As far as I understand, it's like a mobile kind of iPad-esque tablet-ish thing. As in, I've got nothing really. But I'm so curious to understand exactly what it is, because it is supposed to be more powerful at least than the Xbox One. So what the hell is it? Who the hell's going to support it? I don't know. Is it just being as strong as the current generation of consoles going to make a difference, or is it just gap fill until we get, you know, PlayStation 5 and Xbox 2? Not sure.
We touched on this a little bit last week. I think it was last week, about the NX stuff. Coming out halfway through a generation is going to be tough for it. Getting third-party support is going to be tough for it, but that's not really what this is about. But the whole idea of them wanting to do 20 million targets, the news that came out was basically that manufacturing was not going to allow them to get anywhere near 20 million consoles in 2016. I think it was around 10 to 12 million, but this is all speculation. The only thing we know about this thing is that Nintendo are making a console. Everything's basically about patents that we've seen that may or may not be real about a tablet. This about how many they are expecting to sell, which is if they release it, if they ship 20 million of these consoles in 2016, let's assume that it gets released in November, or even a couple of months before that. That's more than half the install base of the Wii U in a couple of months.
Yeah.
If they're expecting to sell 20 million in 2016, they're going to have a big warehouse full of consoles come 2017.
Yeah. This whole thing just reeks, as far as I'm concerned. It just sounds like somebody whose uncle works for Nintendo has gone on Reddit or spoken to IGN and said, well, yeah, well, my uncle says, yeah, or something like that.
They're going to sell 20 million of them.
Yeah, it's news. There's so many holes in this story at the moment. Like, let's be realistic. Yeah.
We don't know what it is. That's the biggest hole. We've got no idea what it is.
Yep.
Which is why I have a problem.
So I was just going to say, putting out a hypothetical scenario, though, if they did announce the NX or the Wii Stream or whatever they're going to call the new one, if they announced it, because there was a real chance, that the Wii U, which could stream, was potentially going to be called the Wii Stream. But anyway,
that was a rumor gun, right?
Yeah,
hilarious.
And Nick's out.
That's so Japanese.
But if it did announce at E3 or at a Nintendo Direct earlier in the year and launched around September, is there a possibility of it hitting that 20 million mark if your 3D Mario or Mario Galaxy comes out, your Legend of Zelda comes out at launch, and maybe a new Metroid Prime game? Do you reckon that could ever happen? Is that a scenario that could ever exist? I know Nintendo would love it, but
yeah, no way.
I think they could sell anywhere from 2 million to 30 million, depending on what it is and what games they've got at launch. Like that Dream lineup that you just talked about then, that could do it, as long as the console was as powerful or more powerful than the current ones. It had really good versions of Zelda, Mario, Metroid at launch, and it didn't have a stupid tablet controller.
Yeah. And maybe it was $99.
Well, that's not...
And did your washing for you?
Yes. And gave you a blowjob after dinner.
I'm like, if they release a console that uses a traditional controller, and I had a bit of a rant about this last week, I will line up and buy it. If it has another tablet controller like the Wii U, then I'm going to be very skeptical, and it's going to be very dependent on those games being amazing.
Darren, you are lying to yourself. You are lying to yourself if you were trying to tell us that you wouldn't buy that console regardless of what it came out with.
Well, it needs at least a good game, because it needs
that didn't take long to change.
It needs to come out with a game.
All right, so just...
It does need to differentiate itself, though. I think it does. I mean, and Nintendo's renowned for their innovation, so I think it does need Nintendo innovation. But how far they go this time, I think they'll probably be a little bit more conservative. But I hope they just don't go down the whole tablet road, because I don't think most parents are going to want to buy another tablet for their families. So it'd be very interesting to see how far they go down that whole tablet road.
I'll want it for a Zelda game, and if it uses a tablet that has a 2-hour battery life again, then how the hell am I going to play it?
Yeah.
Close to a power.
Tethered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Poorly. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had a Nintendo console since a 64, so I can't fit Nintendo. Alright, moving on. Sorry, again. Just going to get some quick comic stuff out of the way. Have you guys been keeping up or not?
Keeping up, no. Unless you mean keeping up within the last 2 years, then yes.
That's not keeping. Yeah.
No.
Does Wes read comics?
No. Not my forte.
I have a sneaking suspicion you're going to be flying solo on this little bit.
That's alright, I just wanted to double check. Alright, so very quickly then, in Nick's comic corner, I have been keeping up with all the Marvel stuff that has been going on recently. A little bit delayed with DC. The Secret Wars, which has been the ongoing mega event for the year, which was meant to sort of destroy all the universes in the Marvel pantheon, I guess, and sort of recreate everything. The final issue has been delayed until January 2016, which is a slight problem considering new issues have started coming out for all the series. Multiverse is the word that
are based after it?
Yes, exactly. So,
Spoilers.
unfortunately, we're getting some pretty big-ass spoilers already, and so we're going to be getting them until January. It's been an incredible series, and it's well worth the delay, I think, because you just want it to be right. And the artwork in particular has been absolutely phenomenal, but it's disappointing nonetheless. Spinning out of that, a couple of the very impressive series that I've been reading, two come straight to the top of my mind. The Mighty Thor, featuring Jane Foster as the new Thor, has been very strong. They've got a pretty good viewpoint going on there. She's, I don't know, well, you guys obviously don't know, but spoilers. Jane Foster now wields the power of Mjolnir, but she's actually suffering from cancer. And every time she picks up the hammer, the medicine that she's taking to sort of fight the cancer is sort of purged from her system. So even as she's sort of fighting evil and sort of trying to protect the Nine Realms, she's actually dying, which is a pretty neat take on the whole Thor mythology. And
Surely Odin could sort that shit out.
Well, this is the thing. Odin's being a bit of a dick. So, yeah. And she also isn't accepting Asgardian help regarding the cancer. So, because, yeah, reasons. Anyway, I've only read the first issue of that, but it's very strong regardless. And Extraordinary X-Men. A little while ago, just before Secret Wars started, the Terrigen Mists, the thing that gives the Inhumans their power, were released in a previous crossover. And these Terrigen Mists have gone all over the world, and unfortunately they're actually making mutants sterile, so they can't breed. So the race is dying out, even as Inhumans are sort of rising. So it's the two. So that's a pretty neat take on the whole mutants being feared and persecuted and so on and so forth. Now they're going to be even more marginalised. If anything,
take that, Fox.
Yeah. There is a rumour going around at the moment that Marvel is basically doing whatever it can to fuck up every single Fox property. Which has...
Like cancelling Fantastic Four.
Yeah, well, again, spoilers, I guess, but if you read the comics, you know that Mr. Fantastic is dead, and the Fantastic Four aren't actually a team anymore in the comics, following Secret Wars, which hasn't actually finished. Blood is going to start pouring from my nose the harder I think about this, I think.
It's just
Deadpool.
a dream sequence. It's just a dream
that's
sequence.
Right, yeah. It'll take place in a desert. Yeah.
The way these big things usually wrap up, Nick, from past history of watching these, is it gets to the end and everything gets undone and it goes back to normal again.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of happened, but there seems to be at least some stuff which is carrying. It's not the cataclysmic change that everyone's sort of carrying
It's
on
just
about.
all the Fox properties have been written out.
Except Deadpool. Deadpool is still as popular as ever, and in fact has more titles than he has in a long time. So Deadpool's still very popular. The Fantastic Four has been split up in the comics. X-Men can't breed anymore, so no new characters technically. So that's less stuff that can go in. What's
Just
the
on
other
that,
Fox
Nick.
one?
Sorry, just on that, Nick. Aren't mutants not necessarily the children of mutant parents in the comic series?
Correct. Yeah. So
the
X gene, I think, can be activated at any stage, and anyone can carry it. So, yeah. But this is why it's a rumor that they're trying to screw it all over. So I think the X gene is just being wiped out in the comics, as opposed to people being made sterile. But the word sterile was actually used in the issue.
Maybe the art department at Marvel just ran out of new ideas. Like, we just need to pause for a while. No new characters. That's it. We're done.
Yeah. Let's just relax. Take a deep breath. So, yeah. Anyway, it's been really good. The current Marvel stuff is very strong. I do have to catch up on my DC, but Batman, as always, is pretty phenomenal. Moving on from my boring comic stuff to TV and mentioning DC and not mentioning DC. We're going to move on to Rocket League has just been announced for the Xbox One.
Not quite announced. So a bit of one of those ratings board approvals. So I think it's been approved in Taiwan or somewhere similar to that. And that's got all those Xbox fans that are just going, we don't need soccer cars, saying, yay, it's coming, finally, it's coming. So, I'm sure it's a game that'll be just huge when it gets to the Xbox One because it has so much PC and PlayStation 4 hype that everyone wants to jump on that bandwagon.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to it. I've got it on PlayStation 4. And I'll absolutely get it on Xbox One, particularly if they did what PlayStation did and launch it as a free PlayStation Plus or Xbox Live Gold game. So it'd be interesting to see how it's launched.
Okay, yeah, it's gone absolutely gonzo on PC. Like, people just couldn't be happier. So yeah. All right, well, moving on, because it has been quite a while. We've been talking about the news for quite a while, I'm afraid. That wasn't the plan. Unfortunately, we're going to have to move on to our discussion piece. Now, there was going to be a couple, but we're going to probably just bring it down to, we'll probably stick with a couple. The Game Awards, we're going to do some predictions. Is that right, guys?
Yeah. Yep.
So the
Game Awards and PlayStation Experience are both over the weekend, so two shows where a bunch of stuff generally gets announced and shown off. So,
all right. So, with that in mind, what are we thinking is going to happen? Well, other than awards being given out and PR people popping champagne corks and Bethesda making out like bandits.
Well, there's a couple of announcements that have already been made about the Game Awards that we know we're going to see. We're going to definitely see some Quantum Break. And the new Far Cry Primal is also going to be on show. We'll actually see some gameplay. So I'm actually pretty keen to see that. So those two have been confirmed-ish.
Yeah, I heard up to 10 new trailers or something like that. 10 new games announced at the Game Awards.
That's a lot.
I don't expect them to all be new games. I'd say that like the Mortal Kombat part of it is going to be a new character that they're going to show off for Mortal Kombat X. So I'd say there'll be a little bit of that as well. But there's generally some brand new game announcements at these shows. So.
Yep.
Right. Sorry, I'm just trying to. I'm thinking of Far Cry Primal and trying to work out how that could possibly be a thing.
It actually looks quite interesting. It's a a BC take on the Far Cry world.
I totally understand what it's meant to be. I'm just not entirely sure how it's going to fit within the usual constraints that the FPS genre places on itself. So bigger and better weaponry. Well, but that's exactly it. What's it going to do then?
It'll have stick customization.
Yeah. I make an arrow like feathers.
But that's what interests me about it. Like, Far Cry 3 was just like Far Cry 4. They're really similar. Far Cry 2. I think going to a completely different setting that really takes us out of the norm of a shooter gives them a lot of room to try some new ideas out. So I'm pretty interested in seeing what they do with it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I hope they can do something with it. It just seems like such a far out kind of thing. It's not like, it just seems pretty random, I guess. And you're right, they do seem, most FPSs are quite samey. That's the restriction of the genre, I guess. Even the ones that are different or trying to do something different are still extremely similar. You get a small gun to begin with, and then you upgrade to a bigger gun, and then you get the biggest gun.
Yeah.
And you start off with a little bit of armor, and then you get a bit more armor, and then you get the most armor. And it's like, how is a game set in sort of prehistory going to necessarily fit within that and still appeal to the people who play Far Cry in the past? I mean, it's intriguing. Hopefully they can do something.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I saw a headline the other day that said Far Cry Primal features sex, and I thought, oh gee, at that point, the game mustn't have a lot going for it if it's starting with that angle at this point in time. So, yeah, I think we're in for a bit of a ride.
So did the last two.
The dangle, if you will. Sorry, Darren?
The last two did as well, so that's not something new to the franchise.
Okay. Yep.
there's a bit of sexing.
One of the things that I'm most interested to see is that the Far Cry franchise has featured a lot of, it's got the massive open world, and part of that is transportation around. You're getting the tuk-tuks in, was it Far Cry 4? I'm interested to see how they replace that. Are we going to be able to ride dinosaurs?
Pterodons.
I don't know if there's dinosaurs in it. It's more around the woolly mammoth kind of time, but I guarantee you that's what you're doing. You'll tame smaller animals, and then you'll get bigger animals, and there's your progression, Nick.
You start with just like an ostrich, and you're riding an ostrich, and then you start with like you get onto a raptor, and you Chris Pratt. Oh wait, okay. So keeping that in mind, like we've just discussed the couple that we sort of know are going to be talked about. What are we hoping? What are we looking for, both in regards to stuff that might be announced for next year, but also maybe some awards? If you guys have got some thoughts on that.
From an awards point of view, I'd love Game of the Year to go to Rise of the Tomb Raider. I think it's a phenomenal game. I don't think it'll get it, just by virtue of the fact that it's a restricted game essentially to Xbox One at this point. I think it's coming to PC soon, but that game is phenomenal. I think it'll go more towards those big multi-plats like the Witcher and stuff like that. So that's probably my prediction, more towards Game of the Year at this point.
I have to admit, my one at the moment would probably be The Witcher or Fallout 4. My play time has been significantly less than I would like this year, just because there's more important things going on at the moment. But yeah, it's probably a toss-up between those two. I think The Witcher looked better, but I don't know if the world was quite so immersive. Could be controversial. Mick?
I think, and this might make me even more unpopular than I already am, I think it will go to Metal Gear Solid, and it will make me quite sad.
I'd agree with that.
Don't think that's going to make you unpopular at all. Well, not with us. You're pretty unpopular with us already, but everyone else. Metal
Gear Solid, personally, I didn't enjoy. I've said it. Metal Gear Solid got some mad reviews. People loved it. I didn't, but I suspected that will be pretty close to GOTY for a lot of places.
Daz?
Fallout 4 for the win for Game of the Year. I think it'll get it done. If only because it's the most recent of those big games from Witcher and Metal Gear, and everybody is still talking about Fallout. It probably wouldn't be my pick, although I still need to spend a little bit more time, but I'm really enjoying Tomb Raider as well. But as far as the thing that I'm actually watching it for, which is less what other people think about the games that I've already based my opinions on, and more about what we're going to get next, I'm expecting some big announcements from Sony. Whether they be from at the Game Awards or at PlayStation Experience. I've got two Sony first-party teams that I want to see what they're working on, and they have to be far enough along to be on it now, which is Sony Santa Monica and Sony Bend.
Sony where? Sorry, what was the second one?
Sony Bend, like to bend something. Bend. The last game they released was Uncharted on the PlayStation Vita. Which came out, was it 2011 or 2012? 2011, I think. So 4 years since then they've been working on something. And Sony isn't one to keep a studio around that's not doing things. So I'd say that they're at a point where they're ready to drop a big AAA game and become the next Sony internal studio to, I guess, make that progression to being a more of a household name like your Naughty Dogs and Sucker Punch and those sort of places. And again, it's been a long time since Sony Santa Monica has had anything come out either. I know that they had one of their teams shuttered and the game that they were working on cancelled, but there's still another AAA team that we haven't seen anything for quite some time. So I expect one or both of those studios to drop some PS4 games that we can finally play.
You had an interesting rumor about the Sony Santa Monica studio, didn't you, Darren?
Yeah, that they're working on another God of War game. but this time based on Norse mythology instead of Greek mythology, which I think is the only way that they can continue the God of War franchise, because Kratos has killed everybody else.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
There is.
Oh, yeah, come on, man.
That's a spoiler. Yeah.
He's such a dick. No, what's wrong
He
with
killed
you?
everybody
Ruining
years
everything.
ago. There's nobody left.
I would like to buy a PlayStation 4 if God of War Norse Edition came out. I think I got away with it. I would. That would be a system seller for me. I'm quite interested in mythology, as my love of Smite would play out, and a Norse version of that would be tip top. I would definitely be very, very tempted.
For me, for that game to be a sell, the character has to be vastly different to Kratos. Like, vastly different, not just a reskin Viking version of Kratos. A completely different style of character.
It'll be a woman. She'll be a Valkyrie. See, they should hire me. I've already got these ideas.
That or it'll be Thor.
No, don't make it Thor. You'll have to fight Thor.
Do you think they'll take that same tact of you killing the gods?
Probably.
Well, it is a God of War game.
Actually, hang on.
War.
It's not a kill gods in war game.
Well, it's still following on from 4 games where all you do is kill gods, so, and everything else that steps across your path. I expect that to not put everybody off that loves that franchise, it'll be the same thing. It'll just be in a different setting.
You were going to say something, Wes?
Yeah, I was going to say, with Sony essentially wrapping up all the third-party support at the moment, do you think they're just going to, I guess, transition their own first-party studios onto making PlayStation VR a thing? Because they need to make that big quickly, otherwise people are just going to treat it as a fad and move on, I reckon. So I think we might be surprised at the number of Sony studios actually working on PlayStation VR titles.
I don't know that we'll be surprised, but
Yeah.
because exactly like you said, they'll be having a massive push on that. I think that it will be revealed at one of these events that No Man's Sky has been pushed back because it is now a PlayStation VR title.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd almost guarantee that a lot of their internal studios are working on games for the PlayStation VR.
Yep.
Just very quickly, the Norse God of War is often considered to be TYR. So probably not going to be old Thory pants. Just putting that out there.
Good.
Sorry.
I think that we will maybe not at the Games Awards, but at the PlayStation Experience, we finally get a release date for No Man's Sky. They haven't officially told us when it's coming out yet, and I think that'll be the time.
They've said it's mid-year, but I think that they're going to. Well, if I'm right with the PlayStation VR thing, they won't date it until they know exactly when PlayStation VR is going to land. Because I'd say they'll come out at the same time. They're both right now. The last we've heard, they're coming out around mid next year. US summer, I think, was what the PlayStation VR is slanted at, and No Man's Sky is somewhere around July. So they kind of line up now.
Okay. Sorry.
Although we may get dates for both.
I was just going to say, we haven't heard much from Sony, from Sucker Punch since infamous Second Son. Do you reckon we'll see something from them this weekend?
I hope so. I want to see something new from every one of their internal studios, because none of them have done anything for over 12 months. So there's been no first-party games. There's been first-party published games, but first-party developed games, there hasn't been any in over 12 months. There was none, not a single one in 2015. So, yeah, lots of studios could have plenty of stuff to show us.
Yeah, I think it feels a bit open slather at this stage, especially coming in towards the end of the year, and trying to drum up stuff, because after Christmas we'll have that fairly infamous lull, if memory serves, won't we? Where everybody's released all the... No? What comes out straight after Christmas?
That's pretty much a thing of the past now. February and March are kind of the October, November of after Christmas.
Uncharted 4 is March.
Well, yeah, there was Uncharted 4. There was Far Cry. There's Quantum Break. There's the Division is meant to be out around then. And then there a couple of things have slipped already, with being Mirror's Edge, although I still think that's still around that window. And the other one that was meant to come out on the same day as Far Cry Primal was... what was it? Mirror's Edge? Oh, Deus Ex. Deus Ex was also supposed to be in that window, so it was pretty stacked as well. It's slipped back now 6 months, but the only lull is December, January, and then we're straight back into it again. It used to be half a year lull, but now it's enough time to maybe finish one of the big games from this year.
Well, a lull's a lull. I'll take it. All right, well, moving on a little bit from that, or sideways, I guess, what would we like to see for next year?
As far as what would we like to see that we don't know about, or what are we looking forward to?
Well, things that we think are going to be there, things that may not be there, but that we'd like to see. We've talked pretty exclusively about stuff that we're fairly certain might appear. What about the more fantastical stuff, if we so choose?
Well, I guess the things that fantastical things would be some of those games that I mentioned from those Sony studios. Not that I know what they're working on, but I just want to see something. The games that I'm looking forward to most next year are Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm going to go completely against the fact that I normally play everything on Xbox here. Horizon Zero Dawn I'm really excited for after seeing the couple of gameplay clips that we've seen. Hopefully we see some more of that over the weekend at PlayStation Experience, maybe. And the other one is, and again, keep completely contradicting myself from earlier, I want Zelda on the NX.
Oh, man, can't help yourself.
No, I can't. No.
All right, Wes, what about a couple of games for you?
Yeah, so one of the games I'm really looking forward for next year is definitely Gears of War 4. It's been too long. I mean, the Ultimate Edition is not something I actually bought into. I was happy enough to just continue on with the original ones on 360, so I didn't need the Ultimate Edition. But I think Gears of War 4 is the true next-gen version of that on Xbox One, so really looking forward to that. And, out of left field, I'm hoping that Sony come out and announce The Last of Us 2. I think that's probably my most anticipated game, up there with a number of others, but certainly the one that I'm really looking forward to. That story for me was just one of the best I think I've experienced in gaming, so I really want to see another one of those.
For me, mine was more mundane than everyone else's. I'm pretty keen to see some things we already know about, being Quantum Break and Crackdown 3. We've already seen a fair chunk of those, but I'm more just keen to get my hands on them. I'd really like to see a Metroid game from Nintendo, be it NX or be it Wii U. I'd like to see them come out with another cracking Metroid game.
How would they do it? Just quickly. FPS? Third person?
Third person could be interesting.
It wasn't with the last one. Other M, not so much interest.
But the third person genre has come a fairly long way since then. My concern would be if they went third person, whether it might morph into a third person cover-based shooter, which is not what I want to see. But I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing something along those lines.
All right. Nice. Personally speaking, my perennial pining for a new Red Dead Redemption would be, if that ever gets fulfilled, that would be wonderful. In the meantime, I'm just going to have to wait for everyone to stop voting for Call of Duty as the backwards compatible titles that are coming out for the one, and just hope that one day Red Dead will get through. And the Norse God of War. I could handle that, I think, just quietly. Well, thanks very much, guys. We have pretty much run out of time. Our news was a bit longer than our discussions, but regardless, I think we covered some pretty good topics and had a pretty good discussion. I'd like to thank Wes. I'd like to thank Darren. And I'd like to thank Mick for joining me, Nick, on the podcast this week. We'll be back next week, either all four of us or three of us. Up to you. As always, we suggest that you visit us at our website, aussiegeek.com.au, our YouTube channel, Twitter, Facebook, you name it, we got it. So hopefully some reviews coming up soon. Siege will be done shortly. We've got all kinds of stuff. Oh, and of course, how can I forget? Patreon. You know, we do this for you guys, and if there's, you know, if you want us to improve on anything, or, you know, improve our equipment, make better videos, make better quality sound, make better stuff, then one way that you can really help us out with that is via our Patreon. So I also encourage you to go there if at all possible too. Thanks very much, guys, for joining us, and I guess that's it for this week. So we'll catch you next week.